Well, welcome. I'm Paul Fanlon. I'm publisher of the Capital Times. I'd really like to extend a welcome to this session of Cap Times Idea Fest 2024. It's great to see you here tonight. I hope you battled through. I didn't realize the volleyball traffic would be like it is. But a couple years ago, we had volleyball traffic on a night we had Jamie Raskin at Idea Fest, and it really suppressed the attendance. So I'm going to have to talk to the volleyball people, I guess. So this is our 8th annual Idea Fest. We started Sunday, we run through Saturday, and this is just a very unique kind of discussion I'm really looking forward to tonight. By being here, you're supporting the Capital Times, my 107-year-old newspaper, and we really appreciate it. It's really important to us to have the support of the community. My first job is to thank our sponsors and partners at these things, and I've been doing that a couple days now, and I'll be doing it the rest of the week, but bear with me. Our major sponsor is Epic Systems, Exact Sciences, HealthX Ventures, UW Health, the Carbone Cancer Center, Madison Gas and Electric, the Ascendium Education Group, and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Our co-sponsors are the University Research Park, Century House, Overture Center for the Arts, Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, Wisconsin Historical Society, the Madison Community Foundation, Cargo Coffee, La Follette School of Public Affairs, Madison College, Leopold's Book, Bar, Cafe, Forward Theater, and our partners include Hinckley Productions, Civic Media, the Wisconsin State Journal, and Madison.com. You know, I sit on the board of directors of the Capital Times, and I'm also vice president of the EVU Foundation, and all of us on both boards have a deep appreciation of the rich arts community, the rich theater community, and we thought this would be just a great subject for discussion tonight. I was visiting with the speakers and our moderator backstage, and I can promise you that it'll be an interesting one. If you're not already a member of the Cap Times membership, if you're not already a Cap Times member, I'd invite you to look at captimes.com and consider becoming one. We're going to be continuing to do things for members only, special sessions and things. This is, of course, our big annual event, like I said, 22 sessions. And I'm going to just take an extra minute here to throw in a pitch. And we decided on this today. So we sold about 1,150 tickets. We sold out Idea Fest this year. And that is enough tickets to fill every seat in Shannon Hall at the Memorial Union. And last night we had a magnificent program of Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, followed by Nancy Pelosi, who was spectacular. But we had a couple hundred extra empty seats. So we decided today that we were going to reopen ticketing. And so if you're interested in any of our sessions over the next 4 days, we're just going to charge, I believe, $10 a session. And so if you have time, please come out. I'm going to spend just a second talking about what we have. So tomorrow night, we have Tommy Thompson, who's going to talk about his 60 years in Wisconsin politics. He started as a Barry Goldwater volunteer in 1964. And later tomorrow night, we're going to have the magnificent Doris Kearns Goodwin, who I'm sure many of you know and have read her books. Team of Rivals, she won a Pulitzer in 1995 for her book on the Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. And she's going to be interviewed by my dear friend and a guy who's just a local icon, David Marinis, who's written 14 books and has a Pulitzer Prize himself. So that's tomorrow night in Shannon. Friday night, we'll have a pair of guys who, Sam Friedman went to the University of Wisconsin. Dan Kaufman grew up on the west side of Madison. They're both authors, journalists. And they're going to be joined by Dan Balls of the Washington Post to talk about progressivism in the Midwest and where it stands and where it might go in the future. And then our feature speaker that night is Liz Cheney. And I expect a big reception for her, since last year we had Adam Kinzinger, and we got a huge reception for him. Finally, on Saturday, real quickly, we have 5 sessions. We're going to have each of the party chairs in the state of Wisconsin, followed by a really important discussion of the healthcare access crisis, particularly in communities of color. We end the afternoon with Charles Franklin, who many of you know runs the Marquette poll and we're going to have Karen Tumulty and Dan Balls of the Washington Post on stage there. Our first evening speaker is Judy Collins, the iconic singer and political activist, and John Nichols, who's going to interview her, says she's bringing her guitar. I don't know. We'll see. But I guess she's going to be back at the Barrymore in December, but that's going to be fun. And then the final speaker of Idea Fest, and this is an interesting reaction. Either people will say, who, or my gosh, Heather Cox Richardson, the essayist who writes Letters from an American daily and has like 1.5 million subscribers to her newsletter. And so that's Idea Fest. But anyway, for $10, I just make a final pitch. If you can get out and come over, please come and join us. All right, so that's my pitch. Taking too much time in this intro, so we'll get on to the program. At the center of the Cap Times coverage of the arts is the talented, and if you've met her, effervescent Lindsay Christians. She's wonderful, and she's tonight's moderator. Lindsay has written about arts for the Cap Times since 2008. She has a master's degree in theater research from UW-Madison, is a member of the American Theater Critics Association, and founded the Jerry Awards Student Critic Program here at Overture. She will introduce our panelists, and so I will invite Lindsay and our panelists to join us. And thank you. Thank you again for being here. We appreciate it. All right. You guys go ahead.
There, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, do it up. And I'll use this cute little lectern. Thanks, man. Actually, you know what?
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to do intros from here.
Doing this because I want to see if there's
Because I'm short. And, oh, look, we got a little table. Look at this set design. It's beautiful. We are on the King James set tonight, which Jen will give a shout out for in a minute. But I'm really grateful to be here in the Playhouse. So I should use this, shouldn't I? I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for being here. I'm really excited to get this started. As I said, we're on the set of Forward Theater's King James, which is an excellent production that's running through September 29th, I believe. Oh yeah, okay. Some people who've seen it. Our panel of arts professionals tonight will be discussing the value and challenges of producing live theater in a digital age. I want to just do some quick introductions of who's on the stage with me tonight. I'm going to start with Sarah. You're right here on my left in the yellow. Sarah Young is the managing director of American Players Theatre in Spring Green. She's been on staff there for more than 20 years. Sarah has a background in stage management, marketing and development, and she works with artistic director Brenda DeVita on fulfilling the mission at this classical repertory theater. I suspect that if you are here with us tonight, you are familiar with APT. Okay. Samantha Newcomb. Hi. Samantha is a new member of the core acting company up the hill at APT. You may have seen her as Emily in Our Town. She's in King Lear this season as well. And Much Ado? Yes. Samantha has a BFA in acting from the theater school at DePaul University. She was also in Forward Theater's The Niceties several years ago, which we will be talking about tonight because it was a pretty unique production. So welcome, Samantha.
Thank you.
To my right, Megan Riley. Hi. Megan is an award-winning lighting and media designer based in Madison. She is a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she researches immersive theater and virtual reality performance. Her upcoming design work includes Just Ask at the Coterie Theater in Kansas City and Walden at Mary Moody Nathan Theater in Austin. Welcome. And last but not least, Jenna Puff-Gray, artistic director and co-founder of Forward Theater Company, which just started its 16th season in Madison. Time flies, oh my goodness. Forward produces work right here in the Playhouse. It's one of the few professional theater companies that continues to film live performances and make them available via streaming, which is one of the things we are going to talk about as well tonight. Jen will be directing the world premiere of Heidi Armbruster's Murder Girl, opening on November 7th. So, hi. So I think we are all here for the same reason. We love live theater. One of my favorite places in the world to be is in a theater right as the lights go down, and anything can happen, and we're all there to see it. And so for our sort of opening question tonight, I have asked these wonderful people on stage with me to share one of their favorite moments of that anything, that, oh my goodness, we're doing this live, or this is happening live in front of me kind of moment. It could be a blooper, it could be a moment of what I think of as stage magic, anything you'd like, but I wanted that to sort of be our starting place tonight, because I think we're all coming from that place. So I don't know, who would like to start? Jen, would you like to start?
Sure. And I do want to just take a moment, since we're sitting here on this beautiful set for King James, to acknowledge Mike Lawler, who is our scenic designer. You're obviously only seeing the wall. We took everything else out of the way, but kudos to Mike for the set that we're sitting on. You know, for anybody who works in the theater, to ask us for our favorite moment in live theater is, it's like picking your favorite child. But the thing that always comes to my mind first took place right here in the Playhouse, and that is we will frequently do a private showing of one of our productions for an audience of folks who might have particular connection to the material. So an audience of veterans to see our play, Learning to Stay, about PTSD, et cetera. And for me, the most magical moment I've probably had in my entire career, that could only happen when you put 300 and some bodies in a space together, is when we did a free matinee of our musical Fun Home for middle and high school students who are members of their high school or middle school's Gay Straight Alliance clubs. And so this entire theater upstairs and down was packed with, as the head of G-Safe, who we partnered with, said, buzzy queer energy. And it was electric. And for me, it's the moment when middle Allison is about to have her first kiss with Joan, the girl on whom she has a crush. And when she kissed her, this entire theater pretty much exploded. And it was beautiful, it was affirming, it was joyful, and it was an experience that all of those young people only had because they were here in live space with each other. They could have watched a filmed version of it at home alone, and it would not have had the same resonance in their lives. So that's my moment.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's pretty great.
Sure, I'll go next. So I've been given permission to spoil a show, just so y'all know. Don't blame me, blame her. But mine happened at a show called You Are Nowhere by the artist Andrew Schneider. It happened at the Walker Center in Minneapolis. And I'm a person who's been doing technical theater and design work for a couple of decades, and I've spent a lot of time going, oh, I love how that scene change happened in time with the lights, and really dorky stuff. And so, I think that I've figured out tricks in the theater in the past, and so nothing really phases me until I'm sitting on this stage doing this show or watching this show, and I think I understand the scope of the stage I'm sitting on, but there comes this point halfway through the show where what I assumed was a solid wall becomes a curtain and crashes to the ground. And it's what's on the other side of that kills me, just dead in my seat. It's another audience staring back at us. And there's also a second performer, a second Andrew Schneider on stage doing the same performance for that audience. And so I just sit there and think, what am I watching? What is even going on? And I thought that I was on this stage, but I'm actually only on half the stage, and there's a whole other audience. Am I looking at a mirror? And it turns out that I'm not looking at a mirror. I'm looking at real people who I think have been watching the other performer the whole time. And so it really totally stayed with me for all these years since then, because it was not something I could see coming at all.
That's amazing.
Well, since I haven't been around or on a stage for a very, very long time. I chose somebody else's moment. We have at APT, you hear about all the nature-y things that happen, the Lear conjuring the storm, not that that's going to happen at all this year, or the bats gathering around the witches and mackers. But we have an award at APT called the Empty Box Award, and it was started by Ken Albers, who was a dear director and actor, and he brought it from Utah Shakespeare Festival, and it was maybe started in around 2010 maybe or something, and it is given for let me get this right, royal screw-ups and extraordinary scene chewing. So, and we did a video series of it during COVID because we were just like trying to put anything on film that we could possibly think of. And so there were a bunch of them. I watched them back today. I just want to share the best with you, which is a couple of, and coincidentally, Jim Ridge and Colleen Madden, who are married in real life. But Jim Ridge was in Comedy of Errors, and he was supposed to come on stage, and there's a big fight going on, and he shoots a gun, and that stops the whole scene, and then the play moves on. And Jim was late for his entrance, and so therefore missed the assistant stage manager who was supposed to give him the gun, and that's a big deal for safety and so forth. So he went on stage without his gun, and the time came, and he was thinking, what am I going to do? And the time came for him to shoot the gun, and he says what he remembers is making sort of a huge, like a huge, like sort of King Kong sound to stop the action. But what he hears from his coworkers that are on stage with him is actually he put his finger in the air and yelled bang. That actually happened. And then just very quickly, Colleen Madden was in Arms and the Man, and there was, and had to light a candle, and it was a windy day, and somehow she lit the candle, and the match, she didn't notice that the match was still burning, and she dropped it on the ground, and it actually, she had a nightgown on, and it caught fire, but she didn't notice. and so in the front row, this lady is like, excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me. And so finally, Colleen got the message. She was on fire and put it out, and the show went on. But that was.
I would have met everybody clap.
Yes. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hi. Truly, when we are on stage, anything can happen, good or bad. Sometimes both. Sometimes neither. And a couple of years ago, we were doing Sense and Sensibility at APT, and I was on stage. We were probably a little bit into the first act of the play, and there's a couple scenes happening simultaneously. I'm upstage, having a little scene, looking out, speaking poetry, and then there's another scene happening downstage. And the actress playing my little sister Margaret turned at just the right angle she tweaked her knee. I'm not exactly sure what happened. She wasn't exactly sure what happened, but she could not move. And everyone on stage is trying to figure out what's going on. There's like a pause happening. What are we gonna do? Jamal James, another actor on stage, scooped her up, carried her to where they were supposed to go next. And then we realized, like, oh, we actually cannot go on. She is hurt. We have to stop. So we stopped the play, and he carries her off stage, and we're backstage and assessing the situation that she is hurt. It's not life-threatening. She will be okay, but cannot continue the play. So we've only made it a little bit into the first act, so we're not really sure what we're gonna do. Everyone is running around figuring out different game plan situations. Turns out they find out the actor that is the understudy for that track is at APT in the touchstone inside watching another play. So stage management and whoever else was tasked with doing that sneaks in, grabs that actor, takes them, and is like, you're going on, baby. They get the wig and the costume from down the hill, put them in a golf cart, run them up the hill, take them into the dressing room, say, you're going on. can you do it? They were like, yes, I got this. They throw the wig on them. They throw the costume on them. They throw a book in their hand. Meanwhile, the entire audience is still waiting. And the entire audience saw what happened, saw we had to hold, knows the situation, and is so, I mean, the audiences up there, as I'm sure you know, are so patient and are so lovely, and like, we all want the show to go on in the best way. I feel like that phrase, the show must go on, is taking on a new meaning these days. And so all of us together were like, okay, you got this, we're gonna do it. So we all come back out on stage. There's applause everywhere. And everyone during the rest of that show was so locked in, because we're all like, I got you. We're helping maneuver that person around the stage. The audience is like, yes, we're continuing the show. Like, we came here to tell this story, we are still gonna do it. Everyone who came was like, we came here to hear this story, we are staying, we're still gonna hear it. I just feel like it was so amazing. That's the only kind of thing that happens. Like, we're live, what are we gonna do? And my favorite, most memorable moments on stage are often the ones where it's like, we're here exploring what it is to be human. Like, that's it. We show up for each other and we figure it out and we continue on. So I love people.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Those are all really. As we're talking, I'm like thinking of so many more. Of like, the show starts and the lights don't come up, and the kids start singing, and the lights don't come up, and then they just eventually the band sort of stops, and then there's some shuffling around for 5 minutes, and then the kids come back out, and the lights come up, and everybody is like with that show from that moment on. We are all in it together. Where anything they do from that point on, we are with them, right? So I wanted to start with you, Jen. Sure. We're on your set. Forward Theater, as we've sort of talked about, is one of the few theater companies that has continued to record performance. So the pandemic, theaters had to do all kinds of pivots, and we've been talking about that, for the past few years. I don't want to rehash all of that, because I feel like we've had those conversations quite a bit. But why has Forward continued to film? What are the challenges and what are the benefits of doing that?
Sure. So, all right, we get to March 2020 and everything shuts down, and Forward had actually announced our season slate and opened up subscriptions 2 days before everything shut down. So we were in the middle of asking everybody to renew their subscriptions, and we had no idea what we could offer them. But we said, look, we are honoring every actor's contract, and we are gonna find a way to get these stories to you, and we will figure it out. And that whole first season was about figuring it out. We aren't filmmakers, but we figured out how to make theater on film. And we can talk more about what we learned and our amazing artists who were just so willing to figure it out with us throughout that year. But then we get to the beginning of the 2021-2022 season, and we were allowed by the Actors Union to be back on stage. We were allowed by the city to have audiences back for live theater, and we were game to do that. But we knew a couple of things at that point. Number one, the pandemic was very much still going on, and a lot of people were not yet comfortable coming into public spaces like this. And we had figured out how to film what we do and make it look still kind of like theater. And so we said, great, again, subscribers, single ticket buyers, we are so thrilled that we can welcome you back in person, but we know you may or may not be ready either now or just on the night. If you have a cold now, we tell you, please stay home. We don't know what it is yet. And so we said, well, we're going to keep doing this because it allows flexibility and comfort to our regular audience, and we know how to do it. And it's expensive and it's hard, but it wasn't unreasonably expensive or unreasonably hard, given that was how we were able to get people back. And as we continued in the season since then, we've continued to hear not just that it is convenient for people if they aren't feeling well, or really nice for the actors in our shows if they happen to have family that lives 1,000 miles away and now can actually see their work. But it was also, we were hearing from so many members of our audience for whom the experience of coming physically in person to the theater was not something that was accessible for them. And maybe that had to do with COVID, and maybe it didn't have to do with COVID. But it became this incredible accessibility tool that, again, we had figured out how to do it. It wasn't something we really knew how to do well prior to the pandemic. But when we had to learn how to do it, we got better at it. We learned how to do it at a rate that, again, it wasn't cheap, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't that expensive and it wasn't that hard. And it really allowed us to keep theater accessible to folks. Now, anyone who's been one of our subscribers knows that last season we were only able to offer a streamed version for 2 out of our 4 shows. And that's because we have to get sign-offs from 3 different entities for any theater to offer stream theater. First of all, the theater has to want to do it and want to put the work and the money into doing it. Second of all, and we will do it for every show we can, sort of indefinitely, if it's just up to us. But then you have the artists' unions, and at least through 2025, Actors Equity Association is granting media licenses that allow us to film and stream under some very strict, criteria to protect their union members, but they are allowing it. But the third sort of group that has to sign off individually is the playwright and their agents. And last season, only 2 of the 4 playwrights representation allowed us to film it. This season, only 1 of the 4 is allowing it. So Murder Girl, it's a world premiere. We're working directly with the playwright. And she's like, great, absolutely, let's film it. But the other 3 playwrights have said no. And to be honest, I don't know if by next season anybody's going to say yes. I think the unions are amenable. As you've seen, very few theaters are still doing it. And that may be why playwrights' agents are just like, we don't want to bother with this anymore because not that many people are asking for it. I think we've been one of not the only, but one of the longest, runs of companies to continue to offer that streaming option. But even I don't know if after this season we'll be able to do it anymore at all. So that's where we are.
Thank you. I did want to mention, everybody, we've got cards. If you've got a question for these folks on the panel, there are cards out there. I forgot to mention this earlier. I'm so sorry, Chris. Chris is up there. He's got cards, and we will collect them in maybe 20, 30 minutes or so.
It's so much more fun if you ask us questions. So get a card and write on it.
It is fun if you ask
Let's
questions.
have a talk back.
So, Sarah, American Players Theater, it's 100,000 people or so every single season. You have these huge audiences that come out to rural Wisconsin. It's not like you can accidentally walk by APT, right?
Right. Right.
But so an online presence has to be a part of giving artists who've never worked there, audience members who might be curious, a sense of what they're going to get. But I wonder what parts of online and digital connections have made sense for APT and what hasn't really felt like a good fit.
Yeah. Well, and so unlike Forward, we filmed everything when we came back in 2021, and did just one Hamlet in 2022, and that was the cost was steep, and because of our rep format, it was hard. It was that hard, and we weren't seeing a big demand for it. Honestly, it was we would sell maybe 300 views of a show, and our typical audience for a show up the hill would be like 10,000 people. So it just wasn't feeling necessary for us. But definitely an online presence is necessary, and I think it's a really important part of establishing a relationship with our audience, and that's what we strive to do, is have a relationship with our audience. So we have a filmmaker on staff, Hannah Anderson, who's amazing, and I just checked this morning. We have 422 videos now on our YouTube channel, so check them out. And it used to be in maybe 10 years ago that you felt like we were producing a major motion picture when we wanted to do like a 3-minute promotional video, and so we didn't do it very often, and it was just hard. And so but now Hannah will she'll crank out a couple videos a week on this and that, and it's really great for audience building, relationship building. The other thing I will say is that we've used our online presence a lot in our education program. So we've been able to redo how we do our study guide, and that's a multimedia event now that's available online. And also I think most theaters are in the business of creating our own content. I know you are, and because Lindsay's one of a very rare breed now that writes about our work and reviews our work, and so that's fallen to the organizations. So we've started to take that on as well.
One thing I just really quickly wanted to reference too, during the parts of the pandemic when shows weren't happening up the hill, there was that wonderful audio tour that you guys did. And I remember saying, like, you should keep this. This is really cool. And the message that I heard back was, it is expensive to make sure we have all of the rights for all of these things. And it was like a one-time only kind of license. And so it was harder to do that, I think, than it seemed.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the members of the core company put together, it was kind of a 2-part audio tour. So you would go to APT, it was like in October of 2020. We would give you a headset and a little MP3 player, and it would guide you along paths and up to the theater, and it used a lot of poetry that had copyrights. So the licenses that we got were kind of a one-time thing. So we would love to have that again, but it was just too labor-intensive and too expensive to do again. But it was fun. It was kind of felt like the first time. It just felt so amazing to have people come to our woods, even though we were all more than 6 feet apart and doing our own thing. Just to have people in the space was beautiful.
So, Megan, I'm hoping that you could talk a little bit about the work that you do around virtual reality in theater, because that's very new to me. I don't think I've ever seen anything with virtual reality in theater. So I'm curious just if you could tell us a little bit about that work and how you kind of got started with it and give us a sense of what it is.
I think I got started over the pandemic as well, which was right before I came to Madison. So during the pandemic, there was not only a lot of streaming going on, but also there were companies formed around virtual reality performance. So you're actually wearing headsets, you would go into virtual spaces and you would be in a live performance with live actors simultaneously in that virtual space with you. So I can think of like, there's a game on the Quest headset called The Under Presents, which hired a lot of actors in Los Angeles at the time to do performances during the games, but then they also staged an interactive Tempest that you could go in and actually play the roles of different characters in the Tempest with the main actor playing Prospero. And remembering like a specific, moment of live theater in that was when Prospero's cat jumped on her lap in the middle of the performance of the Tempest that I was viewing, and she started yelling at her cat. So what I saw coming out of the pandemic was a lot of people were really kind of decrying this stream theater and digital theater and virtual theater as being not real theater, not live theater, just a temporary replacement for when we get back to the real thing. And I was really sad about that because I do a lot of media work and I'm really interested in digital and virtual work. And I also don't believe that was going to be our last time having to be confined. And so if we can do theater better, then we should. So I created this experiment where I recreated a piece of theater from the British artist Adrian Howells. He used to do one-to-one live performances that were very intimate and very centered on audience care, which is important to me because a lot of immersive theater gets very in your face and very intense. And so I recreated one of his pieces in virtual space, and the great thing about this piece that I chose, which was called The Garden of Adrian, he had actually, in his archives at the University of Glasgow, are all the audience reactions to it. So I could take my audience reactions to it and compare to his. to see how are we connecting to the audience in virtual space? Is it possible to create an actor-audience connection? And I found out like right away that even without adding anything special that VR can do, just having one actor and one audience member on stage in our virtual stage, that they connected really well, which I had not expected. So there can be a real connection in virtual reality. And I think that's another way that we can create theater, especially during difficult times. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Samantha, you have recently made a pretty big commitment to APT as a core acting company member, and I think a lot about sort of the choices, especially that we make as we're going into our careers, of taking this direction or that one. This is a big move. I wonder, what was it about working in live theater that first sort of drew you, and what's keeping you there?
I think it's so magical and important to be in the same space as other people. Like, that is what we are meant to do as people. So I think for me to be doing a play, and there's all this energy happening between myself and you guys up here on stage, and at the same time, all that energy that we've created is sent out to you, and then you are sending all of that back to me. Like, we are all connected. And I feel like there's something so important about having that connection, about bearing witness together, about sharing stories with each other in the same space, about breathing the same air. It is kind of divine to me. And I find that, especially because I work out at APT, which is like not digital, okay? There's owls and bats and mosquitoes. And often I'm like, oh man, there's mosquitoes biting me. I don't have to do this live with outside. I guess I don't have to. But I don't know, it's a heart thing. It's a heart thing to be connected to everybody else and to hear how things resonate with people. I don't know, I think it's how we are supposed to tell stories. Or at least because we've been doing it forever. Since we have existed on Earth, we've been telling stories to each other, live, gathering. And I think that there is a really tricky part about accessibility in that, because we cannot all go to the same place. We cannot all gather. We cannot all get up a hill in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. But when we can, or when we create a way that we can gather, I think human connection, like, that's all I'm after. Is just like this, okay, we are actually sharing what it is to be alive with each other.
Thank you. I do want to talk a little bit about accessibility as well. So one of the questions I have here is about GalaPro, and in 2023, I believe APT had a Romeo and Juliet with a deaf actor playing Romeo. It was an incredible production. I bet some of you have seen it. But I remember being really interested in those, like, GalaPro. It looks like it's on your phone.
It can be on your phone. It's an app.
It's an app, and it's basically closed captioning live theater, which is a very cool thing.
Yeah, so we knew when we were going to do this Romeo and Juliet that we needed to ramp up. You know, we do ASL interpreted performances. I know you do too, but we wanted to. Some people who are deaf or hard of hearing don't use ASL, so we looked into this GalaPro system, which a lot, I think it is in use a lot in New York and around the country. But it's an app, and we load the show. It's like one line at a time, and we actually had our house manager, Lauren Docknall, went through and typed in from the script that whole show, because it has to be formatted in a very specific way. And it took her, I think she said like 40 hours to type it in. And then we have an operator in the booth who hits a hits a space bar, listens to the show, and hits the space bar every time. And then we if you have the app on your phone, you can use it on your phone. But we purchased tablets, so we have 30 or 40 tablets that are available to give out. And this year, Gallipro is available for King Lear and Much Ado, because Samantha's in those shows. I'm kidding. We did the Shakespeare's, and we because of cost and so forth and how the cost is structured, we made those available when King Lear opened in August, but it's available through the end of the season. And what we found is people, who are hard of hearing and maybe have a hearing aid or using our audio devices also love to use the Gallipro too, as sort of, like you would use your closed captioning on TV. It's been really, really popular. We want to use it more. It does take time and money, but it's something that we're really committed to. Yeah.
I'd love to just kind of jump in there. I mean, thinking about this panel conversation we were going to be having and the things that we learned during the pandemic and the ways that it has influenced what we do now that it's almost all back to happening live in person again. Accessibility, I feel, and the learning around accessibility and the ways in which we can literally expand the access to what we do to folks. It's been an explosion for us here at Forward. I mean, we had the ASL interpreted performances before, large print programs, that sort of thing. But spending the time during the pandemic focused so much on how can we share what we do with audiences who were stuck at home, and then following that path, especially as technology has expanded so rapidly and what it can support, like with that Gallipro, it started with we're filming our shows. Oh, great, now we can offer closed captioning. That only costs a little bit more to offer that. And then it became, now this season we're rolling out audio description for our performances and we started filming our pre-show lectures to have online, not just live on Thursdays and Sundays. Well, now you can also get them online for all of our shows. And they were things that even when we came back into doing in-person theater, we had just discovered so many new ways, and it really hadn't been our top priority prior to the pandemic. And the confluence of having that time and just that accessibility lens that was, over our eyes for all of that time, I think that's been a way, and it's tremendously benefited Forward and our audiences, but I think it's been across the industry. So much more is happening now because we had to learn how to do new things, and if we're going to learn how to do new things, let's keep doing new things.
Good, Megan.
Oh, I was just going to say regarding the accessibility too, I'm pretty out there as an autistic person, and I can tell you that we were just having a conversation before this all started about how can we get younger audiences into doing things, coming to see theater, coming to see these talks. And all I can think is like the younger audiences that we're going to be seeing soon have access to more science, more diagnoses. There's a lot more willingness to see theater as long as it is tailored to them. And so I really hope that your playwrights will continue to want things to be streamed, because streaming is so good for people who can't see it. And same with whatever APT can do. I mean, getting accessibility to everybody. I really hope that someday we can have shows that are available to everybody, regardless of not having to go to sensory performances or ASL performances. And I know that it's an expense, but it's really important.
Oh, I was just going to say, about accessibility, that I feel like it's when, how we had to learn about equity, diversity, inclusion, and make those relationships and learn what we didn't know what we didn't know. And so we had to learn what we didn't know. And then we had to practice what we didn't know, what we were learning. And then, the A on the idea is the same thing, that it's creating relationships with people and with advisors and with consultants who can teach us to see things very differently.
Exactly.
So when I was looking up ideas for some of the things we might talk about tonight, theater in a digital age, I ran across a story about a theater company that was maybe using generative AI. So using AI to create their backdrops, their video backdrops for this particular musical. And so that was something that I wanted to just ask you about a little bit. How are we seeing generative AI in musical theater? Are we seeing it in theater in general? Yeah.
So without referencing said musical, I know
they
that,
deny it.
yes,
So.
the projection. So the person in Key was a projection designer, and they say they did not use generative AI. And I have more things to do in my life than question somebody else's like artistic integrity. So I'm like, cool, you didn't do it. Sounds great.
Maybe he was mimicking AI.
Maybe. I mean,
He was making it look like
It's
AI,
just
but it
I.
wasn't. Yeah.
I don't use AI in my work. I have used it in the past as research images. So a lot of times when we're doing a design, one of the first things that designers do is start gathering visual research, which usually involves other people's images to say like, I want it to feel like this, I want it to look like this, I want this color blue, that kind of thing. So in the past, I have used DALL-E to create some images, but that was before like I really fully understood and kind of grokked what the cost of using AI was, that it was using other people's work to generate these images for me, and that the cost in terms of the environmental impact is huge for using AI. That doesn't mean that we can fully avoid it. I think we all use AI in different ways. We don't even notice it, really. But yeah, I'm not crazy about it, and I know people who do use it, and there's constant ethical discussions about it, but it's not something that I am in favor of, if that's what the question is.
Our whole business model is about paying artists to create art, and AI is built on taking the work of artists without their permission and without compensation. So it's one thing to use it for research. You're not monetizing it. It's not necessarily making it public. But when you're creating art that is to be public or to be monetized, it feels like at odds with everything we hold.
It also can be
Dear.
so close if I'm using a research image and that research image ends up on stage. What if it looks just like that person's stuff? Like I'm not okay with that anymore in my own work, but I know plenty of designers who do it. So I don't know. I know that the Disney, the whole thing about, what was that one? Secret Invasion. Their opening credits were all AI, were generated by AI, and that was a big thing. So.
One question that I sort of wanted to get to before we open it up here a little bit is sometimes theaters will do things that people will hear about online, and those people online will have objections to that choice. But the way that live theater works, most of those people who are having those opinions are maybe not going to see the show. Right, because the essence of a live performance is it's usually a limited time, and there's a limited number of people who can see that thing. So, but I've seen, especially since 2020, we've seen backlash against regional theaters for different choices that they've made from people who aren't seeing the show. And I wonder, for Sarah, for Samantha, for Jen, like, if that kind of discourse is happening about one of your shows, a show that you're in, a show that you're producing, do you have parameters around how you deal with that? Like, how do you figure out when, we need to have like a wider discussion about this, or we need to protect our actors? Or, I mean, are there policies that you have around like what we do when there's online discussion of something that's happening live and they're not intersecting?
Has that ever happened to you at APT or anywhere? You had?
I don't think so. I mean, I also don't know. I'm really not very online, TBH. So I don't think I've experienced that. I've heard about it right before I got to ABT with Blood Knot.
Yeah. I mean, it very rarely happens to us. Definitely we're about protecting the artists, and that's something that I'm sure you can quote the part of the handbook, the employee handbook that talks about that, all the tips and tricks. But, we, like, for instance, we discourage artists, actors from friending someone on Facebook that they don't know, who, like, if a fan were to, we just discourage that. And we always let them know that if someone's into, we try not to make a connection online between an artist and a audience member. And if that happens, we always let them know that we are ready to step in and help. We actually just recently had somebody who wanted to give an actor some notes after they had already opened their show, and we shut that down.
Yeah, we don't have a policy beyond, making clear to all of our employees, whether they're on stage or off stage or in our office, that, we've got their back. We just try to take everything case by case. And if someone online is trying to engage with us in good faith, then the staff will engage with them in good faith. And if they're not, then we'll move on and let them be in the space that they're in, and we'll just be over here doing our work. Yeah, we haven't had to have any sort of policies beyond we've got your back and let us know if you have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, case by case a little bit, right?
Totally case by case. Like, I feel like sometimes, yes, you engage with them and you go ahead, and then other times you delete their comment, and other times you just leave it alone. I mean, it just depends kind of on what it is.
And it's so hard, and even tone and all that. I mean, we just, an example, we had a post on our Facebook page today about our current show, King James, and someone commented on, we'd done a little pre-show, like sort of promo video, and someone commented on it, and the comment began, this is like the worst, promo video I've ever seen, and then continued to say, don't let it dissuade you. This is the best show I've ever seen. I'm a curmudgeon, and I give this 5 out of 5 stars, or something like that. And, it's like when you're managing the social media, you look at the first sentence, and your immediate instinct is to go, block. But in fact, it was, someone expressing their opinion, and it turned out to be very nice. But yeah, people can be very interesting online.
Yeah.
The things people feel comfortable saying are not what they would necessarily be comfortable saying face to face, and we are all hopefully learning how to be a little better about that.
I would say more often it's about like how they couldn't get the seat they wanted, or something about like the ticket, the website, or something like that. That's easy to deal with.
Yeah.
I am often reminded of it's like Leslie Knope saying,
Ooh, yeah.
where she says the people are caring very loudly at her.
I need that embroidered on a pillow.
I like it. People care very loudly at me. Our work is public. The work I do is public too, right? And so people can have all kinds of opinions about that. And it's about if you're engaging in good faith, I think. Yeah. So just a reminder, Chris can collect your questions. If you've got some, you can just wave your hand and he'll come get it. We do have one actually here that is very similar to something I have on my little list, which is about social media in live theater and the role of social media in live theater. And I will see some theater companies playing around with social media stuff. I am an elder millennial, so I'm not on TikTok. I am on Instagram. So I see like certain things will come through. I'm currently obsessed with the new musical from the creators of Six, Why Am I So Single? And I got that fully from Instagram. So, theater can come to you those ways. So I wonder if Samantha, you said you're not very online. You're like, do you think that there's a role for theaters to be taking up a larger space on social media? Is that a good move?
I think it can't hurt.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Truthfully, especially as, we talk about like, how do we start to get younger audiences or whatever that may be, or folks who are looking to experience things in a more accessible way that they didn't know was available to them. Like, all of that is going to be in social media or virtual space. I think that it really can't hurt if younger people are on Instagram, are on TikTok, that if your information about what you do is on there, that they will find it. And I'm not saying like we are gonna program for TikTok, and I'm not saying we have to have all our actors on TikTok. I just think folks of my generation, especially, that's where I find stuff. I look up, where's the cutest places to go in Door County? Like, I look on Instagram, I look on TikTok. They'll do a little thing, a little blurb about, here's things that you didn't know about that you need to know about. And I feel like if you need to know about my theater, maybe I show it to you in that way, if that's where you're looking for your information, or if that's where you're looking for ideas or for communities or things like that. So I do think that since it has such a stronghold in our culture, or in the younger generations, then it does have a place in what we do, in terms of like how to let people know who we are or what we're doing.
Yeah, meet the audience that you want to build where they are.
If that's where they are, I'm gonna go there.
Using TikTok as search, right? Yeah.
I use TikTok as Google, to be honest.
Yeah.
And like, that was actually silly because that was recommended to me like by a nurse. She was like, if you want to know about blah, 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 go on TikTok. She was like, I know, I'm 50. I shouldn't know about TikTok, but you can look up stuff on. It's just like, it is a place. You can find some people's personal accounts. You can find some people's information or whatever. So I think it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, we have lots of fun on. We're not on TikTok a lot, but we're on Instagram and
Right.
Facebook, and we have lots of fun. And I think we, like I said earlier, it helps create relationships. And we had and reaching new audience last year. We did a little video during Romeo and Juliet of just all the actors doing their name signs. And it almost went viral. I don't know. What do you count as viral? We were like 100,000 views or something. But yeah, so it was fun.
I can say that with immersive theater, which is, for those of you who don't know what immersive theater is, it's when you're not seated. You're in the same room as the rest of us. You're walking around, maybe interacting with actors. So like, for example, a haunted house is a kind of immersive theater. I can say that immersive theater does a lot of work online in terms of building communities. So you would see like around Sleep No More and other Punch Drunk shows, there's all these communities on Facebook saying like, I know every single room in Punch Drunk's Birth City, and here's where you can find all the things. And all these discussions take place, and what the companies actually do is use it for marketing purposes, which, for better or for worse, that means that you, the people online or social media, you're doing the labor for the theater company. But it works for them.
I mean, it's not really no different than word of mouth. It is word, it's.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, our favorite thing you can do is share the link to our show and say, I liked this. I mean, that generates more bodies in the seats for us.
I think there are probably a lot of different ways of using social media, like whether you're doing reels, you're showing something. And I think it's interesting that you brought up spoilers earlier, because, I think a lot when I'm writing about a theater piece about not spoiling, although I have complicated feelings about spoiling. So I did want to, before we sort of close up here, I wanted to just ask everybody on the stage to plug something theatrical that you're really excited about, that you'd like to see more of, something that you saw recently that was really wonderful. Just, this is a theater-loving audience, I'm going to assume. So if there's something that you'd like to plug, this is your opportunity to do so.
See all the theater that you possibly can, and support your local companies. It's wonderful, and a treat to subscribe to the Broadway series, to take a trip to New York or Chicago, see a giant show. That's wonderful. For the cost of one ticket, you can probably subscribe for an entire season to your local theater and see plays that have been selected to speak to the community, to employ the artists who live in the community and add to the creative class. And you get to have a live experience alongside your neighbors. More of that, please.
I would say if you haven't seen Angels in America at UW-Madison, you really need to go see it. It's really incredible.
Oh, we've got 4 shows running. I think, try APT in the off season. Try the 9th show, Nat Turner in Jerusalem, coming up in October, November. Is going to be fantastic with Jim DeVita and Gavin Lawrence. Try our Winter Words series if you can get a ticket.
My favorite thing.
And go see King Lear. There, I said almost all of them.
I also work there. I'm excited about I'm doing King Lear. I'm doing Much Ado About Nothing. I'm excited about all the things we still have going on. I really like all the stuff we're doing in the Touchstone. Constellations, Virgin Queen are still running, right? Both. Are they closing?
Yeah, they're
Either way.
all running to not as of now.
But
They
the
close
fall
tomorrow.
show, Nat Turner in Jerusalem, should be really exciting. I love the Winter Words reading series. It is so awesome and proves that this is amazing. We don't need everything about the theater that we can do in order to enjoy being together listening to a story. That is what's so cool about the Winter Words series and hearing these new plays and being excited is all I'm doing is receiving just the story without the extra stuff that hopefully we'll get to add to it later. So that's what I'm excited about is hearing what new plays are we going to hear? What stories are coming up for us?
I'm always amazed that they are so good. They're so good. I love readings. I love play readings. I wanted to put in a quick plug, actually, for something in Milwaukee. I just saw The Coast Starlight at the Milwaukee Rep, and it's excellent. Without giving too much away, it's about a young veteran who gets on a train, and he's just sort of made a very fateful decision. And it's all of these characters who kind of come into his orbit, and it's very much like, what I would have said to you is this. Or what I would have asked you is this, and the conversations that they would have had if they weren't too sort of closed off in their own little worlds, as we all are on public transportation, probably. But it's a beautiful play. It's running, I think, for a few more weeks.
Where is it?
Milwaukee Rep. It's in the smaller black box space.
Oh, it's in Steam Key. Okay.
Steam Key.
Steam Key.
Steam Key. Milwaukee Rep is sort of under construction right now, which is why you probably asked that.
Right, yeah, sorry, yeah.
But it's a gorgeous production. I highly recommend it. If we don't have any more questions, I will let all of you go and just say thank you so much for being here. This has been a delight. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.